Hello and welcome back to the What Problem Are You Solving podcast, where we believe that finding out what problem you are solving turns into what pays. We're two lean startup coaches that have a passion for quickly delivering value before you spend too much. My name is John Ruark, and I do lean startup coaching.
This is Ty Smith again. How you doing? I'm his partner in crime.
Partner in crime. So today we're going to talk about strategy. So we know we got Ty excited because we walked through all this innovation readiness levels in the past, but now we're here to talk about why are you doing it in the first place?
Exactly.
And that really turns into your catchphrase, which became the title of this podcast, which, you know, sounded like, yeah, Ty's saying the same thing over and over again, but when you actually pay attention, it's a really hard problem. Hard question to answer, which is...
What problem are you solving again?
Well, what does that have to do? I know what I'm building.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's fine, but if you don't have a path, if you don't have a sense of where you're going, what your outcomes, because we've talked about outputs versus outcomes, what your outcomes are intended to be, any problem, was it the Red Queen or from Alice in Wonderland, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. Mm-hmm. And so strategy allows you to make sure that you're going on the right road to solving the right problem.
Mm-hmm. So why is strategy important for like innovation, or even just any business in general? Because as soon as you have something that you want to make, a product, well, isn't strategy just build the product better?
Well, you know, it could be, but if just building a product better gets you some additional share of the market or some additional piece of the problem that you're trying to solve, great. But just being able to build stuff, one of our other sayings is without a strategy, you just end up doing things and stuff.
Stuff and things.
And so that is no way to manage a railroad, as the saying goes. And so what you're trying to do is to move beyond just things and stuff to a place where you can either address some incremental parts of your innovation or something that could be completely disruptive. But the problem is you don't want to switch it to. You don't want to think of them inappropriately or think of them in the opposite. And so you could be thinking that you're doing something completely disruptive. Let's think about, when I say disruptive, I mean literally disrupting the known market. Mm-hmm. So we knew that before Apple came out with the iPod, there were other MP3 players. We know that. But they did something. They put an entire web of activities around this electronic cigarette box sized thing that recorded music that was beyond ripping off the web. You know, that's the thing that got the guy from Yahoo, whatever his name, Napster guy, got him in trouble, ripping or having to sit down and take all your CDs and, you know, downloading them. They put together a complete disruption of the market. By having this thing that could put 1,000 songs in your pocket, great, that's fine. Everybody could do that. But what they did was just surrounded by all the activities, strategically surrounded, that they completely disrupted the market in a way that they're now a $1 trillion company.
Yeah. So then what makes something a good strategy versus a bad strategy?
So let's talk about it. There's a guy, he is one of those strategists, one of those guys. And if you ever want to read a couple of good books, we're going to talk about a couple of good books. A thought leader. His name is Richard Rumelt. And a little bit about Rumelt, he was a rocket scientist. 40 years ago, he helped to put the Voyager on the path to...
So strategy is rocket science.
Yeah, okay. ha, funny guy. But he was a rocket scientist, a system engineer, who helped to put the Voyager on path to go to Saturn or Jupiter or wherever it was on its way out of the solar system. And as a part of his engineering prowess, what he thought about was, is there a path, a way of putting together ideas that allows everybody in the environment, is a part of the business, to know what exactly going on. And so out of that, he started thinking about, so I think that's called strategy. I mean, I'm just kind of channeling my Rumelt. Mm-hmm. He said, well, as he began to look at strategies, he said, yeah, great, there's good stuff and there's bad stuff, mm-hmm. as an engineer, which is interesting because most strategists you think about are like the OD type, organizational development types, or the psychologists. Here you have an engineer who was looking at it. And so he had some hallmarks of what he considered good strategy and bad strategy. And so let's start with the bad strategy, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so the bad strategy, there was 4 things that you want to look for. The first one that you want to consider is fluff.
because that's about all the ones I've read.
That's all. That's the reason why I kind of stopped and paused. Yeah. That if you have a strategy that sounds like baby babble, it's probably not a good strategy.
Technobabble or just nonsense.
We've all heard of that strategy, and this is part of it, and this is actually leading us to good strategies. Like, you could drive a truck through that.
Yeah, anything could be that.
Exactly. What kind of business, what kind of successful organization that has any longevity is going to have a bunch of fluff that allows your people to know how to align their behaviors, how to align their processes? The second one that is important, a second hallmark of a bad strategy, talks about the failure to face a challenge. The failure to face a challenge. And he describes the failure to face a challenge as that when you can't define the challenge, you can't evaluate a strategy or improve it.
Right. Yeah, that's true, because if everything's working okay,
it ain't a challenge.
Yeah, so then why you don't need to change your strategy at all. You don't need to change anything.
And to channel my Larry King, why you care?
Why do you care?
Why do you care? So the failure to face a challenge. The third one he has that he calls out is mistaking goals for strategy. And so if they're just statements of desire, I'd like to be able to do this, but doesn't set a hallmark, a point down the road.
We're going to be the best burger business in town. That's a goal. That's not a strategy.
Exactly.
That doesn't tell you anything.
That is not a strategy. And the last one is when you think of a bad strategy, he lays out when you have bad strategic objectives. And they're bad when they fail to address a critical issue, or they're just not, they're impractical. It just doesn't make any sense. And so a bad strategy has fluff. It has a failure to face a challenge. It mistakes goals for strategy, and then it has bad objectives. So what do we know about strategy traditionally? You have a mission, you have a vision statement, you have the dad, and the goals and objectives, and everybody looks at it and goes, I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
But we've laid it all out. We got the vision, we got the mission statement, we got...
And so I've really found this book powerful because he also establishes what a good strategy is.
Oh, so there you go. So instead of just poo-pooing it, okay, tell me what a good one looks like.
So there are 3 pieces to a good strategy, and I find this would be really powerful and a great way to think about it. So the very first thing he says is that a good strategy has a clear diagnostic of the problem.
Okay, so it's actually identified that, okay, here is the reason why we must change.
Right.
There is some event, some trigger, some reason why the old isn't working and the new has to be a different reality.
It could be an incremental thing that you have to catch up with. The banking industry has changed. Or it could be, in the case of a national security issue, holy crap, this actor, other than this other nation state actor, or, oh wow, just think about non-nation state actors, a terrorist organization, all of a sudden has this incredible piece of technology that, or not even incredible, but they now have some technology that has literally gone against all of our doctrine. It's disruptive. A good strategy diagnoses that something has gone bad. Something is out there that could lead to consequence.
Thereby addressing the problem.
Yes. Once you have a diagnostic on it, what do you need next? You need to have clear guiding policy about what is and what isn't a part of your solution, of your strategy. What are the left and right boundaries? How are you understanding the policies associated with that strategy, that once you have the diagnostic, that will allow you to know what we are and aren't going to be doing.
So it's not giving you the actual action plan and step-by-step instructions, but it is at least telling you what needs to be done.
Right.
Very clearly.
Exactly. It gives you an approach to overcoming all of those things that you've identified that are part of the problem. It gives you that clear and compelling sense. And then finally, and this is, I think, where most strategies miss, a coherent set of actions.
Okay. There you go. Very clear, coherent. I love the word, the qualifier, the coherent set of actions.
A coherent set of actions that allow you to carry out the guideposts, the ways that you're supposed to be doing, how you're going to overcome it, which addresses the diagnosed problem. And so it makes sense going down the ladder and going back up the ladder. That's what makes good strategy. I know I've seen strategies that I have no idea what problem they're solving.
Right. That's just the what did you say? The prima facie part of the strategy. You have no idea.
Exactly. If I don't know what I'm trying to solve, how do I know whether or not I'm going the right direction? Mm-hmm. Which, interestingly enough, even as a part of what we've been talking about with what pays, that is a clear connection to me. Mm-hmm. That even as we've talked about going up the ladder of levels of readiness, mm-hmm. we started talking about it. So, do I understand the problem that's trying to be solved? What problem am I trying to solve? Mm-hmm. Then I do all those other pieces that we've identified in previous podcasts. But if I have a strategy that is clear diagnostic of a problem, that is some guiding set of policies about how we're going to overcome that, the things we're going to engage in, and then the actual things we're engaging in to overcome, man, beautiful.
Which I think one word that we use when we're talking about this is that when you say clear, when you say coherent, and when you say actionable, it's all about choice. Right, we've had a choice of what the diagnosis even is.
Oh my God, thank you so much.
We've had a choice of what actions we're going to take. We've had a choice, which is compelling and clear, and which is a big difference than just we're going to do stuff and great things, and we're going to be the best around, and we're going to, be the number one supplier of this. You have not made a choice of what, and not even doesn't have to be product focused. It is the guide, the North Star of all of your actions and directions, your key activities, as it were.
Well, here's what is clear, and the reason why I said, oh my God, thank you so much, because you reminded me, is that strategy ultimately is about making a choice. Making a choice to do one thing versus another. Mm-hmm. What we have found, I know that you and I in our work together, is that people don't make choices. When you have a diagnostic, you've made a choice about what you're going to focus on.
Which means also that you've made a choice of what not to do.
Wow.
You've clearly said, I'm not going to be everything to everybody. I have to choose one customer segment, one area of the world to focus on, one product line, one something.
It's interesting. I'm glad you said that, because I noticed what we said in the morning. We're going to be talking about several different books. And the other book that I wanted to bring up was a book by Roger Martin, mm-hmm. who in 2017 was identified as the #1 management consultant by his peers in the world. He wrote a book with a couple of colleagues, one in particular, a gentleman by the name of A.J. Lafferly, who was the CEO at the time of Procter & Gamble when he came up with this idea. The book is called Playing to Win. Playing to Win. Mm-hmm. Well, good strategy, a diagnostic, guiding policy, and coherent set of action allows you to have a sense of what is and what isn't going to be a part of our our strategy to win the market, to win the war, to whatever it might be. Oh, and by the way, strategy is old, and I think it's important to acknowledge that strategy. One of the heroes of strategy in the strategy movement and examination was Hannibal Lecter. Jesus, sorry. Mm-hmm. Hannibal, the Carthaginian, mm-hmm. who was fighting against the Romans, he was completely outnumbered, but he had a winning idea about what it would take to defeat the Romans, and he executed against it and just kicked ass.
Right. So, I mean, that's good, because if you're very clear of what winning, not just playing in that realm, I love that terminology, because it's very illustrative of playing is just, I'm here, I'm showing up.
Yes.
Whereas winning is, I'm making choices, but I'm very purpose driven on what success looks like.
Exactly.
Huge difference.
Exactly. In the playing to win environment, again, against the backdrop of good strategy versus bad strategy. In the playing to win environment, there are some very simple ideas, some very simple questions, some very simple observations that you need to be clear about. Remember, the second part of, once you have the diagnostic, the second part is the guiding policies, and that's what we're going to talk about when we think about playing to win. Mm-hmm. Roger Martin identified 5 key questions that you must be able to answer in order to establish a great strategy to win. Question number 1. What's your winning aspiration?
Plain and simple.
Right. In other words, in our language, you and I, John, our language is, so what problem are you solving again?
Exactly. Be clear on that.
Right. Be clear. What Roger talks about, and this is about innovation, in terms of what's the winning strategy, it's a future-oriented statement, not a mission statement, a future-oriented statement with key links with key links to your customer that says, for the customer to be in a position to win, we will do this.
Oh, so not winning for us is, we'll get profits up by 25% this quarter.
It is not about money.
But come on.
No.
But I want more money.
That's a great way to limit to, and I'm glad.
That's
good strategy gets you money, right?
It should.
Right. It gets you market share. It should get you whatever. Good strategy should be able to do that. What you want to be able to think about, though, is if I have a good strategy, the customer keeps coming back. And it's not just about money, because if it was only, I want to go from 0 to 250, you'll get to 250 and you'll go, so what's next?
And now what?
Now, if I want to say that I want to be the number one provider of this service for these customers, to be able to have them do this thing, wow, that's what winning looks like. Martin talks about Procter & Gamble. They were talking about oil of Olay. They didn't, and he calls it, instead of playing to play, which would have been, we want to have we want to increase our sales by $750 million over the next 3 years. Great. Now what? That's a play to play, because you're not capturing. You're just trying to seal off a part of the market for yourself.
Stay afloat.
Exactly. Because I know that my diagnostic says that we're in trouble and we need to be able to make this a profitable business. So I'll take that $750 million and we'll just square that away and we're good. Shake our hands and walk away and be proud of ourselves. Versus a play to win, which says we want to be the number one wholesaler, reseller, provider of, and again for Procter & Gamble in the beauty market, of women's skincare products ages 35 to 75. Nobody else wants to compete. They can't compete with us because we put together everything that we need to do, a coherent sense of actions. We know exactly what it's going to take for us to win. It's a very different conversation. That's step number one. Question number two, where will you play? Now, John, you just brought it up that where will you play is not just about where you'll play, but more importantly, what won't you do?
Where won't you play? Which specific geographies are you going to focus on? Which specific customer segments are you going to focus on? Well, everybody wants my product. Wrong. Try again.
Yeah. The road to hell is paved with good intention.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And maybe, like when you have like a platform as big as Facebook, for example, they didn't choose everybody's grandmother as their target customer. Where did they start? TheFacebook.com was just a Harvard dating site.
Exactly.
He stuck with Harvard. Yes, he had no intention it was going to blow up to be this big, but it's only by starting with basically solving that customer's problem in a small scale that you can grow a large scale.
Exactly. And as a matter of fact, what I find powerful about your illustration, so how old is Facebook, by the way? I don't know.
Oh, it's
20. It's not very old.
It's almost 20 years.
Is it 20 years?
It's almost 20 years.
The .com?
Yeah.
The full .com.
Yeah.
I'm about to ask you a question. Was MySpace around before Facebook?
Yes.
So they weren't going after the MySpace market.
That is correct.
They were going after the youth market, college age.
Yes.
Looking for dates.
Absolutely.
Trying to not feel lonely, not having to go out to bars and I don't want to do that. I want to be able to find somebody that is appealing to me, that is young, that is college age, that is forward thinking, that's what they went after. So your point is taken.
That's true. Yeah.
MySpace was already out there. AOL was dating online was out there.
Yep.
But they solved a particular problem. They created a diagnostic of what that problem was.
So what winning looks like, where to play, what's next?
How to win.
Okay.
What coherent actions will we take to win in the spaces where we are going to play and not play to solve that problem? So the first 3 of the 5 questions for strategy are cohere to the what makes good strategy in playing to win, what makes good strategy in Rumelt's model of diagnostic, sense. Guiding policies, coherent set of actions.
I like it. Never thought of it that way before, but it makes sense.
Right? Question number 4. What capabilities must be in place to make the first 3 questions work?
So even if you know exactly what you want to do, which areas and targets and strengths you're going to have, if you don't have the capabilities to back it up.
So what? And as an engineer,
Yeah.
what do you think when I say capabilities? When you hear that word, I'm just curious.
I mean, just off the top of my head, one example could be like if we want to be a data-driven business, but we don't have anybody with a data science background, or we don't have any tools that do data analysis or graphical tools to dumb those down to the dashboards. You can dream all day that you want to be a data-driven organization, but if you don't have those capabilities in place to manage that, you haven't gone anywhere.
Absolutely. And so having all of those things, the first three questions, what does winning look like, where to play, how to win. The capabilities allow for the execution of those things. It allows, it's the hard infrastructure that allow those other things to take place. Mm-hmm. Question number 5.
All right, the last one.
What management systems must you have as a part of your strategy?
Okay.
To play to win.
Right.
When we talk about management systems, you have to have financial management systems. You have to have human resource management systems. Right. You have to have technical management systems.
Organizational structure.
Right. All of those things that we think about a business having to run into to management people. Right. Management, exactly. Didn't say leadership.
Right.
It said management.
Right.
Right. It didn't say execution. It didn't say search. We're going to talk about search versus execution in terms of this. Mm-hmm. It said what things must we manage. Mm-hmm. Now, the base that hold these things allow that question number 1 to happen.
Gotcha.
In serial. Mm-hmm. Question for you and the audience.
Sure.
Where do you think most companies at least begin in this, trying to fill out these questions, trying to answer these questions?
Yeah, where do you think your organization starts when they try to figure out a new path forward?
What have you seen, John?
Well, I've seen it too many times that most of the strategies I see start at number 5.
It's number 5.
That they start, well, we're going to reorg. Well, why are we reorging? Well, we're going to reorg, and you got a new boss now, and here's your new timesheet.
To do what, John?
I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Stupid. Makes no sense.
Time and time again.
We start, and in terms of strategy, we'll start with all the executables without understanding where we're going with this, why we're building these executable things, capabilities, systems, without answering the fundamental question of, why are you doing this?
Yes, right, exactly. It's very, when you see it laid out in that pattern, it's very upside down in the sense of like, well, if I don't, while visions and goals are important, that having this play to win strategy helps set your North Star.
Absolutely.
And if you try to jump ahead down that cascade, or if you don't solve a predecessor number, you're probably not going to get very far.
Exactly. One of the things that's powerful about this idea is that it's testable. A woman by the name of Amy Edmondson at Harvard University writes that strategies are hypotheses to be tested. Sure. Roger Martin talks about it is a combination of creativity and rigor.
Right.
In terms of a hypothesis.
Because no one has a crystal ball.
No. But we act as if we do. We set strategies like, we're exactly going to do this.
Good to go.
And it'll be there for 5 years.
See you in 5 years, right?
Like, who in the world does that?
Yeah, just like, I want to know what lottery numbers you're playing and what stocks you picked, because if you're that sure about your strategy, then you know something that the rest of us don't. It
is not only a revisit every year, it is a visit every day. It is a set of experiments to be understood.
Which is good because, one of my new phrases I've coined is, the results should match the expectations of the method.
Oh my God.
So if what you're doing daily does not align with your strategy, then you need to fix either what you're doing daily or you need to fix your strategy.
Boom.
Or as you said before, if you say you're going to California but you're heading toward, north towards Maine, you either need to say you're going somewhere else or drive somewhere else.
Thank you.
But don't try to hold these two things as true when your actions don't match your intent.
Well, it's interesting. I just want to talk about the difference then between search versus execution in terms of your strategy. At the beginning, you are in search. You are in search of understanding the problem to be solved. You are in search of understanding where we're going to play, how we're going to win. You're in search of understanding all the executables.
It's uncertain.
It's
messy.
Uncertainty. Absolutely. Yeah. It is a mess. It is a freaking mess. How are you going to manage that in terms of execution? I think one of the things that good organizations can do is walk and chew gum at the same time.
There you go. You have to manage that.
Exactly. The ambidextrous organization that can do both execution and search, the rigor and the creativity, are the ones that can hold the strategy, hold the strength of center, the strength of institutional rigor, to hold both of those things. So when they jump out there and they are managing it, they are trying, they are in a space where they can be at the forefront of answering these questions.
Yeah, that reminds me a bit. There's a book that I wasn't really crazy about, but it's popular in entrepreneurship, a circle called The E-Myth, by Michael Gerber. And he talks a little bit about, it's great if you're like the inventor scientist who loves to come up with good ideas, but you also have to manage the long-term back end of your company. And you really need, if you were starting a company, and you're the solopreneur, you're the sole person, you have to be three people. You have to be, the strategist, you have to be the doer, and you have to be the business person. And it's to that point of being ambidextrous as an organization. You have to make sure you're not, just like driving to California versus going to Maine. You have to be perfectly transparent and honest about what your intents are and what your actions do.
I really like that. The notion of a transparency of a strategy to align people's goals, to align people's actions, to align people's focus for your organization is what's powerful. That's what's powerful.
Awesome. Great job.
Great talk, guy.
So that's it for this week's What Pays podcast. And remember, life's too short to waste time, effort, and money figuring out what to build next. Figure out what pays. See ya.
Bye.